Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. In the previous video we talked about what is causing the housing crisis all around the US. If you haven't seen it yet, please do, as it will give you a much clearer idea of what is this video talking about. And for those of you who already did, I'm sure you kept wondering that if we already identified the causes of this crisis, the fixes should be a somewhat easy task. Well, not exactly, because I promised in the previous video that I will deliver the answer to why the housing crisis is one of the hardest problems to fix. Because the solution to a structural problem like this will not be as simple as some says, just build more houses. We already talked about the zoning problem, and we concluded that setting 75% of residential land to single family only is preventing the construction of other forms of housing that will allow more families to live in a smaller size of land. So why not change the whole zoning code? Well, the federal government can't just change it, even if it wanted to. That will demand massive constitutional changes. The 10th Amendment says every power not given to the federal government belongs to the state governments, and the federal government has no authority over land use, so zoning power rests with states. And for the past century, states gave this authority to local governments. That resulted in over 22,000 different entities across the country controlling zoning independently. Now, this doesn't mean 22,000 massive cities. These entities vary widely. Some are major metros, others are small towns, but regardless of size, each one has legal power over what gets built in their area. That means a city like New York with 8 million people has about the same legal zoning power as an unknown town in Texas with 5,000 people living in it. So if America wanted to fix housing policy, they will need to change laws in 22,000 separate places individually. Taking power away from these local governments isn't just politically hard, it's legally complex. The federal government can't just override them. That will violate the Constitution. Here's what you'll actually have to do. First, convince all 50 state governments to pass new laws taking zoning power away from their cities. Then each state will have to fight thousands of local governments inside their border, and those local governments will sue, saying the 10th Amendment protects our right. The federal government knows this is nearly impossible, so they have tried to work around it. In 1973, Congress tried to bribe states with money. They said, we'll give you funding if you create better land use processes. Both states and local governments said no. It failed. A few years later, the Department of Housing tried threats instead, and this time they said, if you don't eliminate restrictive zoning, we will withhold your federal infrastructure money. But President Nixon shut that down immediately. Since then, the federal government has basically given up. So what did the government decide to do when they realized they can't force a change on the zoning code? They decided to help people buy houses by offering tax deductions through the MID. That sounds like a forward step in the right direction until you realize it is helping the wrong people. Let me explain first how the mortgage interest deduction works. When you have a mortgage, the MID lets you deduct the interest from your taxable income. To benefit, you need to itemize your deductions, adding up mortgage interest, property taxes, charitable donations, but everyone also gets a standard deduction, currently $29,000 for married couple. And here is the key. You have to choose one or the other. You can't combine them, whichever is bigger. For example, person A makes $60,000 a year and buys a $200,000 home. Even with everything, they have about $15,000 in deductions. But the standard deduction is $29,000, which is way higher. So they take the standard. They were getting that deduction whether they bought a house or not. The MID gives them zero benefit. While on the other hand, person B makes $250,000 a year and buys an $800,000 home. With mortgage interest and other deductions, they have about $60,000. This is higher than standard, so they itemize. That extra saves them at almost $10,000 in taxes. The government hands person B $10,000, while person A, who actually needs help, gets nothing. And this happens every year. The MID costs $25 billion per year, now projected to hit over $100 billion by 2028. Only 8% of households benefit, and 75% goes to households earning over $200,000. Meanwhile, housing programs for low-income people get $70 billion total. And even with that, only 1 in 4 eligible people actually receives help. So why does this terrible policy still exist? This brings us to the mechanism that keeps everything together: lobbying. The MID wasn't created to help people buy homes in the first place. When federal income tax started in 1913, all interest on all loan was deductible. It wasn't about housing. Over time, other interest deductions got eliminated. In 1986, when Congress cut deductions for credit cards and personal loans, the mortgage interest deduction was supposed to go too, but it survived because intense lobbying by the real estate industry. industry. They fought hard and won. This is the mechanism keeping every broken piece locked in place. On paper, lobbying sounds reasonable. Industries provide expert input on complex legislations. Politicians can't be experts on everything, right? Citizens have a right to petition governments. That's the theory. But here's what lobbying actually is and why it is just legalized bribery. Money buys access. In Washington state legislature, there are 27 landlords but only 10 members who rent. The people making housing policy are overwhelmingly landlords. 4 members of Congress created the Congressional Real Estate Caucus to support policies that help real estate make money. All 4 got big donations from real estate groups. One received $150,000, another $56,000. One member owns 15 rental properties himself. He is voting on housing policy that affects his personal rental income. The real estate industry spent $91 million on lobbying in 25 alone, and they don't just influence policy, they write it. The National Association of Realtors says on their website they help draft and pass a law in Ohio, preventing local governments from implementing rent control. They wrote the legislation and handed it to politicians they donated to, and those politicians introduced it. But the most corrupt part is the revolving door. 25% of House members and 29% of senators who left Congress between 1976 and 2012 became lobbyists. Former Congress members can make around $1.5 million per year as lobbyists. You are in Congress right now, you see former colleagues making 5 times, 10 times what you make. You know, when you leave office, if you have been friendly to the right industries, you could have that job. Former Representative Ed Perlmutter served 16 years and now lobbies a real estate banking and oil. This is delayed payment. You pass laws benefiting an industry while in office, and when you leave, they reward you with $1 million job. That's not expertise, that's just bribery and a payment plan. Real examples: in Washington state, a bill capping rent increases at 3% failed despite exempting new buildings for 12 years. Real estate lobby killed it. In California, developers made millions from affordable housing programs while providing no actual discounts. When legislatures tried to regulate them, developers spent $186,000 on lobbyists and killed the bill. Real estate moguls pulled $60 million to defeat Proposition 10 that will have allowed local rent control. They outspent 150 housing groups who raised $22 million. That's 3 to 1. In Santa Rosa, a city of 180,000, the National Association of Realtors contributed $300,000 to kill local rent control. A consultant openly said, "If we killed it here, it would make people pause." Everyone was watching. They were strategically spending to prevent the idea from spreading. The National Association of Realtors helped pass an Ohio state law blocking all rate control statewide. The sponsor received over $250,000 from real estate over his career. One politician, $250,000 in a statewide ban. Why do politicians do this? They need money to get re-elected, and real estate donations keep flowing if you support them. Many are landlords themselves, voting on policies affecting their income. They see colleagues making $1.5 million as lobbyists, knowing they could have that career, and they can get away with it because most voters don't track donations. This is why lobbying isn't just another problem, it's the central mechanism. It's why constitutional barriers don't get addressed. Real estate lobbies against reform. Why misallocated spending continues. The MID survived in '86 purely from lobbying. Why zoning stay restrictive. Why every reform attempt gets killed. The industry spends $91 million per year to make sure reform doesn't happen. Lobbying is the enforcement mechanism of the entire system. And even if ordinary people wanted to organize and fight back, they face the collective action problem. See the unfair fight? Imagine you are a real estate company wanted to kill a rent control bill. You write a check for $100,000. That's a business expense with expected returns. Zero coordination needed, one person and one decision. No trust issues, low risk. Takes about 5 minutes. Now ordinary people wants to support that bill. They need to raise $100,000, meaning 10,000 people each donating $10, and this becomes impossible. That $10 is a real sacrifice when you are living paycheck to paycheck. Not a business expense, it's food money. You need massive coordinations. Finding and organizing 10,000 people. Huge trust problems. Is this person even legit? Will the money go where promised? What if it's a scam? How risk if it fails? Then $10 is gone. And it requires constant time and attention people don't have. The wealthy donor has none of this problem. But deeper, think from one person's view. My $10 won't make a difference against 100,000. If enough others donate, will will win and I benefit anyway without donating. If not enough donate, we lose and my $10 was wasted. Either way, my contribution doesn't matter, so why donate? Perfectly logical individual thinking, but when everyone thinks this, nobody donates and nothing happens. Meanwhile, the wealthy donor knows their 100,000 will make a difference because politicians pay attention to large donors. This creates a cycle. Wealth gives political power through donations. Political power gets favorable laws. Favorable laws create more wealth. As scarcity raises values, more wealth means more power. It repeats and strengthens. Wealthy interests have every advantage. Already organized as corporations with structures, lower coordination costs, executive decide, now thousands agreeing. Direct relationships with politicians. That money is a business expense, not a sacrifice. Time and resources to do politics full time. That's what lobbyists are paid for. Regular people are hard to organize from scratch. High coordination costs. Thousands need to agree. No relationships. Politicians don't take calls. Money is a real sacrifice. No time after working to survive. This isn't because people are lazy. It's structural. The system favors concentrated wealth. When benefits are concentrated and costs spread out, the concentrated group always organizes better. So even when ordinary people identify problems and understand solutions, they cannot organize effectively enough to overcome entrenched power. That's why lobbying is nearly impossible to fight through normal means. The wealthy don't need the majority, they just need money in organization to outspend the unorganized majority. So let's bring this together. The constitutional structure fragments power across 22,000 local governments, making national reform legally impossible. When governments spend on housing, it flows to wealthy people through the MID, while poor people get scraps. Lobbying is the glue. 91 million per year buys laws keeping housing scarce and profitable. It is the thing that kept the MID alive against every protest since 1986. Blocks rent control and tenant protections, maintain restrictive zoning, offers politicians $1 million job as rewards, and the collective action problem makes it nearly impossible for ordinary people to organize because concentrated wealth will always outspend diffuse public interests. This is a system designed by those in power to benefit those in power, with layers of protections against change. Understanding this doesn't mean giving up, it means knowing what you are up against. Fixing housing isn't about better arguments or just building more houses, it's about confronting entrenched power that profits from the current system and has spent decades and hundreds of millions making sure it stays this way. Now you know why rent keeps going up, why your parents could buy at 25 and you can't at 35, why nothing changes no matter how obvious the problems are. It is not an accident, it's a system working exactly as designed for the people who designed it. The system is not changing because the people who has the power to change it are the same people who benefit from its flaws.